Hello, everyone. I'm Hady Raphael, and welcome for another episode of The Ball is Round. Tonight on our show, Gabriel Charvet interview with La Presse and Horizon 2027, the postmortem on goalkeepers and defenders of the CF Montreal, and of course, the women's national team finally beats Brazil in Halifax. That and a lot more on episode 154 of The Ball is Round. And as usual, I cannot say it.
No, it's not usual.
It's been a while. So we're back, all the three of us. So Hady, I'm here, and I'm joined by my friends. So Eve Powell and Elias Grigoriadis. Friends, it's been a while. I'm so happy we're the three of us here for the rest of the postmortem. Eve, how have you been?
Hanging in there. Nice to see you again.
Very nice to see you too. Elias, we were here together last week with a special guest. This time, no special guest, but the special guests are the three of us together.
Exactly. The gang's all here.
The gang's all here. Exactly. And I'm pretty sure you're super happy with Real Madrid losing today.
They drew. And
they drew.
Honestly,
Yeah, 0-0. Yeah, you're right.
You know what? With the way the Clasico went, and Barcelona winning yesterday, silver lining. You know, they kind of they're within a game again. So.
Eve, what about the Wolves? What's going on?
Channeling their inner classic Montreal impact with a late concession.
Oh wow! So you know,
I'm prepared for it. At least I've lived through plenty of struggle in my soccer fandom, so no water off my back by this point.
Tell me about it. Tell me all about it, Eve. Marseille hasn't been very good, lately, on and off the field, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, 0-0 against Lille. Not doing so well in 9th position in the Ligue 1 with one game in hand. It's not going very, very well, but at least, Europa League is still here to help us out a bit. So hopefully they'll be able to qualify from the group stage this time.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into it. We are here to stay. That's one of the quotes that Gabriel Charvet said in his interview with La Presse, with Alexandre Prat and Jean-François Théotonio, the two journalists that really had an 80 to 90-minute interview with Gabriel Charvet, which is very, very interesting to see the president, giving that much time to a traditional media to have. I think we had like 5 or 6 texts around that interview. I really loved everything that I read. Some are kind of controversial, let's say it that way, but the rest was very, very positive, right, Elias?
Yeah, I think honestly, credit to both of them because like you said, all the articles that stemmed from it were really, really good, and I mean, they're excellent writers in their own right. So there was nothing too surprising about the quality of it, but just the fact that we haven't had somebody sit down and give such a comprehensive, laying out of the team's plans in such a long time that's why it felt more like news than anything else, is because we haven't seen anybody be this candid and be this straightforward with what the club wants to do, and with not just hopefully we get this done, but the actual concrete plans that are very close to being set in motion. So I think that it's a very nice gesture, and it's a very nice step in the right direction from the club on behalf of its of its people in charge of communicating with the public, with the medias and everything. So hopefully that is becoming more of a trend and not a one-off.
Exactly. Hopefully it will be more of a trend. But you know what? It's funny because last week Simple Guy asked us about all of those subjects, and his prayers were finally answered just not even a week after, which is really, really interesting. Yves, do you think that the club, since Gabriel Gervais started his tenure, is really moving forward in a way where, we can see a reconciliation between 100% of the fans and the club? I'm saying towards 100%.
Yeah, I was gonna
not
say
100%.
you're never gonna have 100%.
I said two
I'm
words.
sure. Yeah.
So what do you think about? Is it positive, or do you see a bit of flaws here and there?
I think definitely last year, I think it was such an overwhelming sentiment of relief when he came in, and did so much kind of legwork on the ground with fans to really rebuild a lot of those bridges that were broken, not all the way burnt necessarily, but definitely in need of some repair. This year it's definitely been, I think, a little bit more complicated for him and for the team as a whole. Obviously, we're going to talk about lots of the sporting sides of things and some of his comments as it relates to those topics as well. But I do think he's moving in the right direction. And I think, we only have one other president to compare with in Montreal history, because of course the position didn't exist. And in that case, it's night and day.
No, I agree. And let's talk about the interview altogether. Of course, we're not going to be able to, go into all the text. I think one of the texts is the one that I like the most, is the one where he talked about Horizon 2027. So we're going to take a look at that in depth. To be honest, let's give a small recap of what is being said, and we'll break it down piece by piece. So he said, first of all, Joey Saputo is more connected to the club than what you think, which is something that's very, very interesting. He said also that the club ratings has been up by 9%. So people that are listening or hearing about the CF Montreal or watching the games and everything is about 9%, up 9% in the last year. Next year, there will be more than 10,000 season ticket holders next year, which is a record for CF Montreal. And that CF Montreal has a big project, the renovation of the stadium. The analysis is already done. And to give you an idea, what he said is that the club will be playing in another stadium for 1 or 2 seasons. That's a bit of a recap of everything that was said during that interview. So let's go piece by piece. Let's start with Joey Saputo. Not here anymore. He is in Bologna, but as Gabriel Gervais, he's more interested than ever. What the way Gabriel Gervais explained that was that he has full confidence in Gabriel Gervais and Olivier Renard to handle the project without him being here. And he also said, you know what? He has a lot of projects on his hands, and right now he's needed elsewhere, but he is in constant communication with him. And then he finishes with a small jab. It's a bit ironic. When he's here, we say he's here too much. When he's not here, we say that he's not here enough. So, Yves, what do you think about these quotes about the owner, Joey Saputo?
I mean, obviously, his presence has been, for me, I think his presence in Montreal has usually meant that bad things are on the horizon for the club.
Are you using horizon in the
Hey, there we go. Yeah, that's a mistake. Yves can flip a word. Fear not. No, but it usually, his hands-on presence, before the era of the presidency, if you will, before that position existed, I think we can say that his very, very, very close management wasn't necessarily what the club needed. Of course, what came after wasn't what it needed either, but that's another story. And so I think it's normal that he's away a bit, especially now that there's a president in place and things are not going off the rails, as much as they were in the previous era. So for me, it's pretty normal that he be away, and I don't know what the right balance is for an owner of a club. I unfortunately am not a billionaire, so I will probably never know that feeling. But for me, I'm kind of like, if he's not all up in everybody's business, it probably means things are pretty stable, pretty under control.
Interesting. Elias, I'll let you answer also the same question, because I think it's a very important question, because he is right. A lot of the time when he's here, we complain that he's here. When he's not here, we complain that he's not here. So at the end of the day, what is the right balance in your opinion?
I mean, we all know Montreal fans, right? There will never be a right balance. There's always going to be something wrong. I think that, you know, each owner operates differently. I think, I agree with Yves that need for a president was very clear. And the fact that Gabriel Gervais stepped in and done, his job, at least so far, he's done a good job. And I think that the fact that we are treating this interview as such a rarity and such an event kind of speaks to the fact that people would have probably much better opinions of Joey Saputo if stuff like this happened more often, and if they were just either more transparent or just more available, right? Everyone is always talking about how we don't see Joey Saputo enough, and to a certain degree they're right, because the last time he was made available to the media was during the logo reveal last year. And I understand that he's not a coach, he's not sporting director, he's not president, so he's not going to be available to the media, at once a month, stuff like that. But the fact that when stuff goes poorly and there's questions surrounding aspects that are not related to the club on the field, such as the training center, such as the medical staff, stuff like that, the fact that him or Gervais are not available as we'd like kind of leads into that perception that, he's never here, because we just never hear from him. So if he is going to be now not necessarily a silent partner, but someone that is delegating the majority of the responsibilities to people like Olivier Renard and to Gabriel Gervais, then they both need to be made more available. Olivier Renard, fairly enough, is available quite often, even when there isn't a signing being made. He is available multiple times a season. I think that's a fair amount for a sporting director, but Gabriel Gervais is available once, maybe twice a year if there's like a huge news. So I think that just having him be regularly available to kind of speak about this and not need to give 90-minute interview worth of updates would make their life so much easier. Just be there to answer questions. I'm not saying every week, not saying, show up with Losada before every game and stuff like that, but once every couple months.
I agree, though. I actually agree with what Elias says. Go ahead.
But to their defense, Joey Saputo and Gabriel Gervais, first of all, Gabriel Gervais was available for the media at least 4 or 5 times this year. He was a couple of times just to at one point, I think they helped build another stadium for in a
the mini pitches.
Exactly. So he was there. Every time I see him, he's always at the stadium, and you know what? He always comes and say hi. So I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I've never made any requests for an interview with Gabriel Gervais, because maybe one day, we'll do a request for him to show up on The Ball Is Round, but it's pretty tough. We're not economists, right? So, I prefer to have someone that's more on the sporting side here at on The Ball Is Round, but I don't think there's a lot of interview requests for Gabriel Gervais, because we're more focused on what happens on the field than off the field. But we did see Gabriel Gervais quite a few times. He was here for the logo reveal too. He was here a couple of times. He was here at least 4 or 5 times during the season. And for a president to be here, I think it's already pretty transparent from that side. Now for Joey, and that's my honest opinion, right? Like, to each their own. But for Joey, I think that he already said he will take a step back when he named Kevin Gilmore. That's when he decided to take a very big step back. And he did that, and he gave his full confidence to Kevin Gilmore. And as soon as it became really bad, that's when he stepped right in again. And we all know the situation, and he had to. And right now he said, okay, you know what? I gave my full confidence to Kevin Gilmore. It didn't go well. I'm not going to change whatever I said last time, and I'm going to give again the full confidence to the new president, which is Gabriel Gervais. And as of right now, in my opinion, we'll do that later. But as of right now, I don't. He doesn't have a reason to step back in my opinion. And we'll talk about it right now because yes, of course, results are not what we want. Yes, of course, we don't have any big names and everything, but the project is still in place, and the vision that the club has and was clearly set at the beginning of this year is still on rails. It's still on track. It's still going well. So I don't know. I don't see any urgency for Joey Saputo to step right in. I don't know if you guys agree with me or if you have anything to say regarding that.
Yeah, no, I think it's like I said, if we don't see him, it means things are pretty stable. So
exactly. Now he also said something that I didn't name at the beginning of it. I didn't say at the beginning of the pod. He said we invested $5 million US in player acquisitions. He said he invested in bettering the infrastructures of the club, the facilities, and the women's program with BMO, and also in the academy. Mm-hmm. What do you think about those kinds of investments? Because yes, I think that these investments are investments on the long term, which is very beneficial, again, on the long term and not on the short term. Do you think this is enough, Yves, to convince the fans of the investments and the money that's coming in, where the money's going? A lot of people are asking questions where the money's going. At least he answered part of that, or it's not enough for you?
Well, I think people would probably argue that the $5 million spent on player acquisition may not have been spent as wisely as it could have, given how the season went. Different story. But obviously the women's or girls, if you will, program, nothing but phenomenal things to say about that. Infrastructure is like one of those really unsexy but necessary things that you have to spend money on. I mean, it's like you have to spend money on winter tires for your car, or on like dumb stuff like the roof of your house and things like that you just have to spend money on, but it's like not really fun or exciting. So like it doesn't really surprise me that they spent money there, I just kind of expected that they would, because otherwise the stadium would probably have crumbled in on us by now.
And the academy too.
Yeah, and the academy. I mean, I would imagine the academy is something, again, that they regularly spend that money on. So I'd be curious to see sort of outside of what you normally put into the academy. To me, if you say, okay, well, we invested in the academy, that means they increase something. And I would be curious to know, what was that increase? Like what extra, say? Yeah.
Elias?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Yves, right? It's a lot of necessary spending that just isn't super flashy. I think that,
but I agree also with Yves that I would have liked to know what it was. Like, what did you invest in?
Yeah, like I don't need like an itemized receipt or anything.
Exactly, but at least just tell me, show me something concrete, like
just a general notion.
Okay, you know what? You invested in the academy. What did you do? Did you hire more scouts? Local, regional scouts? Did you, expand any program? Did you tell us a bit more about it? Tell me where the money's going and how. Maybe not how much did you spend, but some kind of figure in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And yes, and infrastructures. I'm sorry, but I haven't seen anything. Did you guys see? Because
like I said, I just take it as the stadium's still standing.
Yeah, but he didn't talk about normal repairs.
No.
He talked about, bettering the infrastructures. What did they better? What did we see that got better? Because the stadium is still the same.
The hill to get to that entrance is still diabolical.
Yeah.
No, but is it the new food trucks? That could be something that
maybe that falls under that umbrella.
Yeah, but why not? But just name them. I think that they weren't named, and maybe because don't forget, maybe he gave an 80-minute interview, and maybe the journalists didn't really write what they were also, so we're not really sure. Maybe he said it and it wasn't written
Included,
down. But
yeah.
what you guys sorry, Elias, I cut you off, but like what did you think about that? Do you agree with that, or didn't you need a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's always like once you get a little bit of transparency, you're like, okay, and I think that hopefully maybe he was just saving a bit for his his yearly State of the Union that he has towards the end of the calendar year, which then will also give us a chance to ask some more questions in depth, and hopefully he's got again, maybe not an itemized list, but he does have more details, especially with the academy, right? If you really are committing to the philosophy of your club being developing and showcasing young talent, especially Canadian and Quebec young talent, then I expect you to be regularly not just investing in your academy, but upping your investment in the academy. So I don't want to see you just, same old. Every year
Like
you should be
maintaining the status
continuing
quo.
to making steps. Exactly. I don't want a
Exactly.
status quo, because right now you are not La Masia, you are not Ajax, you're not Benfica, right? You are not a world-renowned academy yet, which means every year you should be
It
taking
has to
steps
stop.
to grow it.
It has to start somewhere. It has to start
Exactly.
somewhere.
But the thing
You're not
is,
going to be
but thing
Benfica
is, we
and
want to see a
PSV and
concrete plan.
Ajax.
No, but we want to see a concrete plan, right?
Yeah,
We'd like to see, yes, you're taking steps. What are these steps, right? And
exactly.
are is it scouts? Is it we're finally we're increasing the funding for recruiting players and making their lives easier so they can focus on soccer, stuff like that. So I'd love to see
Are we
more
building
specifically how they're
a new
growing.
pitch for young players or something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
At Centre Privé, like that's what I want to see. I completely agree with you,
Exactly.
Elias. I think we needed more information to explain where the money's going, because yes, he did say that it's not a secret for anyone that the CF Montreal has been losing about $10 million every year in the past 2-3 years, but this time we got money back. What did you do with it? And that's what we wanted to understand. Now, he talked about also the stadium. And I think the most interesting part of the whole interview, in my opinion. He talked about adding premium sections to the stadium. He said that right now 6% of the premium sections generate 30% of revenues of the ticketing of at the gates, and this is a lot less than all the new stadiums that we see across the league, and usually it should be a lot more. I know that's not what the average Joe wants to hear, but I think it makes a lot of sense to have more premium seats, to have more corporations get premium seats and get lodge and stuff like that. I think that's going to be very interesting and very important for the growth of the club, and of course for the growth of the revenues. I like that, but also he said that they want to make sure that we are able to use the stadium all year long. So make sure that there is what do we
The
call it?
winterized pitch.
The winterized pitch, some heaters or whatever,
covering.
some kind of cover, or I don't know if it's a roof or anything, or if they're just gonna make sure that all the seats are covered in a certain way. Things need to be done because it's not normal that CF Montreal has to play 3, 4, 5, 10 games outside of their stadium. So do you guys, are you excited about this new project around Stade Saputo, Elias, or do you think we really need a new stadium? I see a lot of fans saying, you know what, Stade Saputo no more, let's go for something new, better and everything. Or do you like that idea to keep that kind of small history alive in a certain way, because we did live a lot of really good moments in that stadium?
Exactly, yeah, and I think that this stadium is nowhere near old enough to warrant just a complete redo. I think that it does need renovations for sure. And the thing is, the location of it, right? The history of it, but also, where it's located in the city, and it's an Olympic Park, the backdrop of the Olympic Stadium. It's quintessential, and it's synonymous with the club. I think that increasing the seating of the stadium will then offer, because yes, I do agree with you that you need, more corporate partnerships and maybe a premium section, yes, but if you grow the premium section without growing the rest of the stadium, the rest of the stands, then you're getting an increasingly corporate feeling, which is going to kill the atmosphere, right? So if you're going to, grow that premium seating that does generate that money, you need to, reciprocate that with an equal growth in affordable seating, right? Because at the end of the day, the loudest fans are not necessarily always the ones that are paying $100 a ticket,
Are never,
and the ones in the support
are never the ones that pay.
Because I don't want to say people that pay $100 are not, are not vocal, but the supporter sections, there's a reason. The
$100 is not a premium section.
No.
$100 is, we're not talking about a premium section, right? And where I disagree with you is that I don't think you need, because the premium sections are going to be, it's just going to be in a box and, with tainted glass or whatever. Like, you're not really going to see them, and it's not going to affect the atmosphere. You're not even going to realize that, even renovations have been done. So I don't think that it's going to change anything about the atmosphere, because you'll have exactly the same amount of people, in the bowl, if you want to call it, with making exactly the same noise that you're used to. So I don't think so, but I kind of get your point that if the premium sections are going to be outside and close to where the whole party is, then yes, of course, the atmosphere could be affected. So Eve, do you agree with that adding those premium sections could affect the atmosphere?
Not if it's done judiciously, because obviously most, if not all, other clubs in MLS have a higher proportion of those fancy seats, as I prefer to call them, than Montreal does. And there are very few teams in MLS where I think that would be considered the source of a bad crowd atmosphere. So no, overall it doesn't concern me. Just has to be done, in a way that doesn't look bad, I guess, for like aesthetically speaking.
Interesting. Now, he did add a few things about the stadium, Elias. He said that
hypothetical stadium.
Yeah, exactly. About the renovations of the stadium.
Hypothetical
renovations. The projected renovations.
Okay, projected. I can meet you in the middle on that word. There we go.
Now, he said it is a project. It's called, like I said, Horizon 2027. He said, at most, it could take up to 3 years to be done, at most, because they need to wait for the Rio, the Olympic Committee, to take their decisions regarding the Olympic Stadium too, because if they're gonna do renovations at Stade Saputo, so maybe they're gonna have to play in the Olympic Stadium. So they want to make sure that the Olympic Stadium is free before they start the renovations, which I kind of understand. We'll see what's going to happen with that. And he also said, he answered about the comparison made between the CF Montreal and the Expos, because a lot of people are saying, oh, we're going to disappear like the Expos. And he completely rejected that comparison. Completely rejected. He's like, just before the Expos moved, yes, they sold their biggest salaries because they weren't able to pay them anymore. And he said, we're not the same. Right now, yes, of course, we have some players that are here to go to Europe. They have, they see that as a main objective and everything. But we do have players that want to stay here until the end of their career. They don't have a problem to stay here until the end of their career, like Mathieu Choinière, like Jonathan Sirois. And we all know that these two are the best players of the club this year. They received all the awards this year. So he said, and we also saw like Samuel Piet that came back and is now, the team captain. And he talked about, Choinière and Piet being called by the national team and saying, you know what, you can have a great career here in Montreal. what do you guys think about the comparison between CF Montreal and the Expos? Elias, I'll let you start this time.
Yeah, I think that Montreal as a city, especially as a sporting city, still hasn't recovered from the Expos leaving, which is why the second a team that isn't the Habs starts to like financially and sportingly not do great, it's like a PTSD flashback. Like, oh my god, the Expos again. And I understand that. I personally, I've never been a huge baseball fan, and I'm also too young to have properly been affected by the Expos departure. But I understand that sentiment and not having gone over, a team leaving, because a team leaving your market is a very traumatic thing for the sporting culture of a city, right? And especially a city that doesn't have, like the Americans, where they have 6 or 7 professional teams, right? Montreal right now has 4 if you include the PWHL team that's going to be coming to Montreal. So I think that it's very easy to jump to conclusions. I don't think that they're in any way in a similar situation, but yeah, I understand why there's concerns, but I think that those concerns have been properly addressed.
Eve, do you believe, those people that really do the comparison? Are you afraid of that? Do you feel that it's an actual threat?
Not at present. Obviously things can change, but at present, no. Period.
Okay, love it. Simple, concise, and
Yep.
everything. I agree with Eve. I've never understood people that said that. I think Joey Saputo has been here through thick and thin. He's been here, in the dark years of the club, and I don't see him leaving unless he's not able to afford it anymore, and that's completely not the case. So no, I'm not at all afraid of that. I think also that I think I said it quite a few times here on The Ball Is Round. What is being built by the club, even if the average Joe doesn't really like it, the fact that it's local players, not a lot of bling bling and everything, I love it. This is the kind of club that I want to support. So yes, maybe we're not going to win silverware every year. Yes, or never. But you know what? We're going to see local talent grow and reach new heights that they never would have reached if there wasn't a club like CF Montreal giving them a chance. So for me, that's more than enough to support and help the club and cover the club, because we do cover the club weekly. So yeah, that's my opinion regarding that. So that's what we got from that interview. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add on the interviews and all the texts that were written on that interview.
No, I don't think so.
Perfect. So guys, if you have any questions, I haven't seen the comments here. So if you have any questions, feel free. We are here to answer them, of course. Moving on, after we discussed all that, we're going to go directly into the second part of the postmortem. Last week, we talked about Hernan Losada and what we thought about it. We had Alex Gange-Rizik that gave his opinion. Elias, you gave your opinion. Eve, you didn't. So I'll give you a chance to give your opinion on Hernan Losada. What do you think? What do you think he did? What was good? The pros and cons, but also give him a grade at the end out of 10.
Actually,
please.
I got a pretty spicy text from the Holy Gale after you all gave out your grades. So.
Oh really? I want to hear all about it.
Oh, I wouldn't say it was warm and fuzzy.
Oh, she didn't agree with us then.
Not at all.
She wants Losada to stay then. Okay.
Somebody gave him a 6 out of 10, and she was dying.
6 out of 10. That was Elias.
Yes,
that was Elias. It's not me. I'm pretty sure it's not me.
Yeah, you gave him a 4.
Right.
You gave him a 4.
I gave him a 4 exactly.
And that is also the grade that I'm going to give Hernan Losada is a 4 out of 10. I'm giving him a 4 because injuries and Kai Kamara leaving on the eve of the season start. So I think at the early part of the season, a lot was working against him. So I do find it a bit hard to judge him kind of on that really, really, really difficult early period of the season. Obviously, road games were a freaking disaster. Hopeless. I mean, Gabriel Gervais said in one of his interviews, he was like, I was with the team on the road. He was like, I don't know what went wrong. And nobody seems to know what went wrong on the road. But at the end of the day, it is on the head of the coach. And let's face it, if Montreal had picked up even one more point on the road, they would be in the playoffs, even though their play may not have merited playoffs. You know, the tactics were very hit and miss. We saw occasional hints of attractive football, but we often saw a lot of really timid, counterattacking, really rigid play. Sometimes, unfortunately, it was dictated by injuries. But that being said, you know, you grow throughout the season, and there were spells where plenty of players were healthy. A lot of concerns as well with the man management style of Hernan Lozada. He clearly has alienated several players within the squad. I think that was made abundantly clear in the postseason pressers.
Was it?
Because like we had Victor Wanyama on the ball is round here, right?
Yeah.
And he was so nice, and he gave Sam's mom his jersey, and he was so sweet and lovely and beautiful. And then he was giving that interview, and I was like, "Who is?" I was like, "Oh my god."
What's going
I was like, is it Wanyama after dark? I don't know.
Wanyama after dark. I love it.
And I was like, well, then I was also like, how dare you? Not to Wanyama, but to Lazat, right? So yeah, his man management style, and I mean, let's face it, he didn't come into Montreal with a glowing reputation for how he had treated his players.
Yeah.
And and when he did his introduction, he said, you know, that he's young coach, he's learning, he wants to improve. I'm not sure he has. You know, hearing from some very, very well-respected world-class footballers, I'm not inclined to believe that he has. So honestly, you know what, take my 4 and put it down to a 3.5. I've talked myself out of it.
Wow, okay, that was quick to change your mind.
No, you know what, I thought about Victor Wanyama. That's all. That's all I had to think about was that lovely, kind, soft-spoken Victor Wanyama, and then he was upset, and that made me upset.
Love it. 3.5 out of 10. I was asking myself if I became more pessimistic or you became more optimistic. Now, you know, you levered things before even I said my message.
The universe
That's really,
is balancing
really
out again.
Exactly. Okay, so
I think did you ask me something else, or I forget? Was that it?
Do you think he has to stay or he has to leave?
Well, I can tell you, I think he and Victor Wanyama will not both be here for sure.
Right. So we agreed on this. I think all three of us last week. So
honestly, I'm not really in the mood for another season like that. And I don't necessarily see it getting better. So I'm going to say, see you later.
Yeah. And Holy Gale is here, by the way. Yes. So, hey, Holy Gale. And Patrick is I think he answered me.
Yes. When you're
I said I'm
about,
happy about the project. He said, that's great. That's all great, but you played to win the game. Yeah, but that's not like they played to lose the game either. They're trying to win the game. They're just not good enough yet. So hopefully they'll get better. So now, you never know. Moving on, I think we can start with our postmortem player by player. I really thought about it. Last week we wanted to do Olivier Renard, but I think I'll wait at the last episode of the postmortem because decisions have to be made until then.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get a clearer picture of the vision of Olivier Renard for the future, and
I agree.
Wait him there. So we'll wait for the end, not today, but the end. Thanks, Eve, for agreeing with me. So let's start with goalkeepers. Of course, we all know goalkeepers. Jonathan Sirois, we'll start with him because I think it's going to be very
he's
easy.
Kind of the only goalkeeper we saw this season.
Not true.
Well, for a hot minute, and we also saw Logan Ketterer.
Yeah,
we forgot about him.
Yeah, but
statistically the most efficient goalkeeper in CF Montreal history.
Right.
So
hey, you know what? It looks really good on his stats sheet, so good for him.
Exactly.
Never
so let's look into a goal on the CF Montreal jersey.
Jonathan Sirois, here he is. You can see him. I just adding him and removing him. Yeah, so
Your friendly
you can see
neighborhood
him.
epileptic is gonna have a moment.
Okay, so Jonathan Sirois is here. What a great first season he had. Let's say our piece about Jonathan Sirois. I'm pretty sure we're all going to be very optimistic. Our grade, does he need to stay? Does he need to leave? If you want to give, maybe your pros and cons about his season, Elias, I'll let you start because I kind of know what you're gonna say about him, and like I can have a feeling that I know what you're gonna say about him, and I think I like the cons that you're gonna talk about. So go ahead, start with Jonathan Sirois.
Pros is the biggest one was his obviously his improvement, right? Not only did he take up the job and instantly, play above expectations, but he continuously improved and added tools that, you had hoped he would get over the course of a season. He had them rather quickly. The most notable one between his first game and his last game of the season was his distribution, especially in the long ball department. At the beginning of the year, he was extremely unreliable. When it comes to short passes, it's a short pass, it's a high percentage pass. If you're passing out to the center back or even to a fullback on the ground, it's very unlikely that you mess that up. But picking out a midfielder or a forward and breaking multiple lines through the air was borderline unthinkable. At the beginning of the season, he really struggled to pick out those passes. And towards the end of the season, you really saw him and show that he had improved in that department. So I think that he still has a long way to come, especially given how, if you compare him to James Matemis's distribution, which is, I find, to be much more reliable. I think that, that is the next thing he has to get really good at. I think the cons is experience. And we saw it at arguably the two most important moments of the season. We saw it in the final of the Canadian Championship, and we saw it in that 1-0 lead that they lost to Cincinnati FC. The Canadian Championship, it costs the trophy. That he doesn't come out of his net against Cincinnati. That ball gets cleared either way. Montreal ends up with 3 points instead of 1. They end up with 43 points of the season, and they host a play-in game. So those two things are, from a pure goaltending perspective, I feel are the only really bad things of the season. Yes, there's, the 4-0 game, the 5-0 game, the 3-0 game, the 4-0 game, but those were complete team efforts. Those were, collective collapses. I think stuff where you can look at Jonathan Sirois and say, you dropped the ball, I could think of twice. And for a rookie goalie who was put in really out of the blue with a ton of expectations and a team that was already so hot and cold, I think that he over-delivered. And I said this after his mistake in Cincinnati, with the amount of points that he single-handedly saved for Montreal, him losing 2, I'm not that mad. It's just that when you look at it with hindsight, you go, those 2 points would have put them in the playoffs. But overall, it's so far net positive that you can't even look at that with anything other than just, it happens.
You're great. Does he stay? Does he leave?
I'll give him an 8 because I think that no, I'll give him an 8. I don't think anybody was near a 10 this year, so I'll give him an 8. And he's on the very high end of the median. So yeah, and absolutely stays. Stay for as long as you can keep him, for sure.
Eve, I'll go next, and then I'll give you. I'll let you talk. I'm not going to repeat everything that Elias said, of course, because I agree with most of it. We did see an improvement. Of course, we saw also his inexperience, and that's something that really didn't help him at times. In the high pressure games where we saw he fumbled the ball, he gave that penalty. This inexperience is a bit, unfortunately, created a bit of uncertainty, I think, in the back. But that's normal at this stage. It's completely normal. Now, right now, this year, of course, we can accept that. Next year, it's going to be even harder to accept that. And the year after, it's going to be very bad. So let's wait and see how he's going to grow. I do agree that he improved his distribution, but I think there's a lot of improvement to be done there too. And what I like about him and the biggest pro that I can give him is his confidence. I think that the confidence that he has shows on the pitch. The defenders feel his confidence. They are relieved when he's here to hear him, and his communication is pretty good too. We can hear him yell and scream, which Pantemis is very good at that too. So I like that. I think this is very, very interesting as a first year. Unbelievable as a first year, even when on the ball is round. Maybe I think last year, even the year before, I said I think we should go with Jonathan Sirois as the number one. Everybody laughed at me. I wasn't even expecting that good of a first season, but you know what? I think really, really good season, and I agree with your grade. I would say I would give an 8 out of 10, but not a higher 8. I would say, a lower 8 in that instance. I think 8 is a bit generous even. I would say it's 7.5, but 8 is good for me too. Trying to go to not be with the 7.5. Everything that's a half, I don't like it. So 8 is a good thing for Jonathan Sirois. Anything to add, Eve, or do you agree with everything or you disagree with everything? Just going to give him a 2 now.
No. Yeah, no, I think a lot of what we've identified as shortcomings for Jonathan Sirois are largely things that we can reasonably expect will be improved upon next year with more experience. I do think kind of towards the end of this season, when things started to get hot, I kind of felt that confidence was kind of diminishing from him. I didn't feel that he was as in control as he had been in other stages of the season. So I think that is probably what I would add, is that, whether it was on a set piece, we saw him, missing some relatively easy, whether it was a catch or a punch or what have you, and sometimes perhaps staying behind when we would have expected him to be a little bit more aggressive. So I think that's probably something to work on next season, is just kind of maintaining that kind of steady composure. And just regulating that, particularly, when pressure does really ratchet up. As for a grade, I will go with a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay, so 8 plus 8 plus 7.5, and let's say Elias said 8.5, so we come back. It's approximately an 8 out of 10. So let's give him an 8 out of 10. Yoo-hoo! That's the first grade of Postmortem. So I just wanted to show off with my grades. So 8 out of 10. I think everybody agrees. I'm pretty sure everybody agrees with that. So it's not.
Or they can tell us if they don't.
Or you can tell us if you don't. Exactly. So interesting enough is that Jonathan Sirois is under contract until 2026, which is really, really interesting for his growth. So we'll see how he's going to evolve. Next on the list is our friend James Pantemis. James Pantemis, only 2 games this year.
And not actually 2 full games.
And not actually 2 full games. It's impossible to rate his season, yes, but I want to talk first about he's at the end of his contract. The club has an option to either extend his contract by a year or 2, or just release him completely. What would you do? We cannot really grade him.
No.
What would you do? Knowing that he's already 26, gonna be 27 in February, so very shortly.
Mm-hmm.
So not a young goalkeeper. And if you're looking at the future, you're going with Jonathan Sirois, that's only 22. So do you keep him or do you let him go, Eve?
I think for me, the question is more for the well-being of James Pantemis' career. Like never mind Sporting, Montreal, whatever. I think for James Pantemis to have a shot at being a number 1, I think he should have gotten out last season or the season before, to be completely honest with you. And I have been saying that consistently. I think since 2021. So for me, I think Montreal may offer him the option to stay, but as number 2. And if he's content with that, if he's content, just playing in cup games, I mean, he still gets paid. He's still on a professional team. He gets to be local and be with his family. So there are pros to that for sure for him. But if he wants a shot at being number 1, then I think the club should absolutely not trigger his option. And I would hope that they would have the respect for him and all the time he's been at the club to consult him on that.
Interesting. Elias.
I tend to agree with Eve, right? Because of the fact that this guy has been such a fixture in the club for so long. He's part of the academy. He's done everything they've asked of him. He's gone out on loan. He's come back from loan. He's been the helpful substitute. He's been the starter. He's done everything a keeper can do at a club in every facet. So I think that, if it is time to move on, I think they should do him the courtesy of having it be an amicable departure. It's also important to remember that he makes $160,000.
That's my next.
Which is
that's
a
what
lot
I
of money.
said. Yeah, if you're
is,
content,
which is a lot of money for a backup keeper, because I don't think anyone is expecting James Pantemis to take the starting job next year. And Jean-Claude Sirois makes like 85, I believe, this year, which is going to go up, obviously, with his new contract. And 250,000 for your goalie duo is not bad. But with Jean-Claude Sirois definitely going to be making more than James Pantemis this year, and if you're going to be looking at closer to $350,000, even $400,000 for a goaltending duo, and that much of it is occupied by your backup, then you start to look at the salary a bit sideways, given how fiscally austere Montreal is with their salary. I think that having that much money in your goaltending duo is a bit irresponsible if Olivier Renard has this much money to play with. So I think that his future probably lies elsewhere if he wants to be a number 1 keeper. If he's okay with being the backup keeper, I think that this new contract will definitely take a significant pay hit. But that ultimately lies to his relationship with the club and what he wants out of the rest of his career, because he is still quite young, right? This is a veteran, but this is by no means someone mid to late 30s or early to mid 30s that's on his way out of the game. So I think it all depends on what he wants out of it.
Honestly, I'm gonna be a bit more decisive. For me, no, I don't want James Pantemis to stay with the club, even at the lower salary, because I would prefer to sign Ketterer as a backup goalkeeper who can do a decent job as a number 2. He's cheaper. He was a third goalkeeper, so I'm pretty sure he's going to welcome, the opportunity to stay as a second goalkeeper and have a young goalkeeper be the number 3. In case, the number 3 never really sees the bench even. He'd only be there just in case, Ketterer is starting and you want to rest Sirois, or Sirois gets injured or anything. And I think it's important to have young goalkeepers come and train with the pros on a regular basis, and then play with the reserve. That's not a problem at all. But I would like that. I think that's what Montreal missed in the last few years, not giving enough exposure to their young players with the first team, not necessarily on the pitch, but already in training. So I think you start right now. If you have a young goalkeeper that's 17, 18, 16 even, why not just, right away put him as a number 3 keeper, knowing that he's not going to see the pitch as a number 3 keeper. That's what I would do. And I think it's time for James Pantemis to really think hard about his career and go just get a new challenge. If it's in CPL or in USL, I know CPL, it's going to be pretty tough for him to land in CPL, but maybe in USL or elsewhere, in a second division in Europe or whatever. He does have a Greek passport, so that's going to help him maybe land a contract in Europe. But I think it's time to see James Pantemis really leave CF Montreal for good. So let's wait and see. I did answer quickly Logan Ketterer. Do you agree? Do we give him an extension or not? Just like that, just quickly.
I have no opinion, really. I mean, like,
okay.
Yeah.
You're allowed. You're allowed. Elias, do you have an opinion or not really?
I mean,
No.
he's been a very faithful number 3, right? So whatever happens.
Exactly. Good. Okay. Moving on to the defenders right now. So let's start with the first defender. Let's go with central defenders first. Our good friend, Gabriele Corbo. What do you guys think about Corbo's season this time? Eve, you're the one starting.
Yeah, so kind of a little bit of a surprise return, as he was on loan last year and then permanently signed. Overall, great versatility. Really appreciate that from him. I think he's probably the most mobile out of that central defender trio, because Campbell and Waterman are much slower. He slotted in on the left, he slotted in on the right, and he looked at home in any of those positions. I think he's a very crisp player technically. Typically not very flashy, no dangerous slide tackles, nothing like too risky from him, but it's good, clean, simple play. And it doesn't get him in hot water, it doesn't get the team in hot water. What more can you ask for? So if I'm going to give him a grade, he's going to probably be my highest graded defender, maybe. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 on this season.
Okay. Elias.
I agree with pretty much everything you've said, right? He is
you.
your typical technically sound and no nonsense center back. I think that I was very happy to see him come back. I was disappointed when he left last year. I thought he was being groomed to replace Rudy Camacho in the middle in the future. He is still very young. I think he's 23, 24. So there is still a lot of upside to him. And hopefully this is, we haven't even scratched the surface of his potential. I think that I'd love to see him be more assertive and kind of take this defense by the horns, kind of in a similar way to what Joel Waterman has done, and make his position but also his presence felt a lot more, because there were a lot of games where he was just complacent with, I did my job, okay, no mistakes, then I go home. And I think that he is so much better than okay and decent and solid. I think he has the potential to be excellent. So I think I'd love to see him be more assertive and kind of insert himself a lot more and be a lot more decisive, right? We saw that, a couple times he would pop up and take a shot from 30 and 40 yards out and not look terrible, stuff like that, right? I would like to see him leave his mark on the game more. He was a bit error prone this year. He was caught out a few times. I think that also has to do in large part to the fact that he had Ariel Lassiter on his side. That's no discredit to Ariel Lassiter. He's just not a left back. I think that he had to compensate for the fact that you had a winger at wing back, whereas, George Campbell or Joe Waterman, whoever played on the right side, had an actual proper right back to have kind of to give you that cover. So I'll give him a 7.5, a light 7.5. Because I do think, like Eve, that he was overall still the best center back that the team had this year.
I'll just add a few things to that. First of all, I'm sorry, Elias, but it feels that I'm really confrontational today. But I don't see Gabriel Corbo playing in the middle of the back three. I think I love him on the left-hand side of a back three. That's where I think he was at his best.
Yeah, with the current iteration, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Until they get a left-footed center back, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's when he was. That's where he was at his best. Even on the right, I think I didn't think he was as good than on the left, because he's able to help that the absence of a real left wing back, and he's able to do that. Yes, he's going to do errors, but a lot of other players will do a lot more errors than him. So that's the first thing. Second thing, he's going to be 24 in January, so he's very young. So I like that. He surprised me by his consistency. That's what really surprised me about Gabriel Corbo, because last year in 2022 under Nancy, he just helped. He was a rotational piece. And this year, being a number one, like a first team player, he really, really showed how consistent he can be. And I love that. I love that. This is very important for a central defender. Very good season. I love his long play too. He's able to really switch the ball from one side to the other very easily. Very precise passing and very precise long balls. I like that too. I think he needs to improve a bit more on his heading abilities, but he's quite there for me. So I agree with your grade, Eve. I would go with a 7 out of 10 too. That was my grade for Gabriel Corbo. So 7 out of 10 for Gabriel Corbo. I think we all agree as of right now on our ratings of the players. So I really love that. Moving on to the next player, it's Joel Waterman. So Joel Waterman. Just to say, Gabriel Corbo is under contract with the club until I'll tell you for 1 year, for 2024 to 2025, if is an option.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll see.
Safe to assume we'll see him. Yeah.
Exactly. Joel Waterman, same thing. I'll say it right now since we're talking about him.
Well, he just did his big extension. Yeah.
Exactly. For 2024, he'll have an option for 2025. So, Elias, your turn. Let's start with Joel Waterman.
It was so hot and cold this year. I think that, at his best, he was excellent, and at his worst, he was dreadful. And I love Joel Waterman. I think that he's been a great addition. I think he's an incredible example for just how viable a pipeline the U Sports, CPL, MLS national team pipeline can be. And I think that, he has, of all the center backs that we had at the beginning of the season, I think he's the one that adapted to Losada's style of play the best. If you look at, Rudy Camacho and you look at Joel Waterman, Kamal Miller, excuse me, not really, getting along with Losada's style of play. I think that it suits Joel Waterman much more, who's just a much more direct center back. I think that, when he had the choice to play in the middle as a replacement for Rudy Camacho, he didn't do that great. But once Camacho left and it was thrust upon him, he embraced it like a leader. And I think that was probably his biggest growth factor of the year, is the fact that he embraced that leadership role in the back three. I still want to see him be a bit more commanding. He's not, he some games he just wasn't as imposing and it didn't exude that aura that you would see from Rudy Camacho as the middle center back, because again, as that middle center back, it's a lot of directing, it's a lot of game management, it's a lot of, it's a lot of managing not just your team but also the other team's attackers. And you have to have this intimidation factor that we kind of talked about throughout the season that Montreal didn't have. And in some cases, it started with Joel Waterman, where technically he was a solid defender, but at the same time, you have to kind of have this discouraging factor that he just didn't bring sometimes. So overall, I would give him a 6.5. I give him a 6.5, and I feel like it's a bit high just because of the fact that his highs and his responsibility, especially post Camacho, was very impressive. And I feel like he had his best moments after Camacho left because he embraced that role. So I'm going to go with a 6.5.
Eve.
So I'm going to lead with my grade just because I've committed to it. So I'm going to give him a 6. I agree with a lot of the points that Elias made. There were definitely some ups and downs. And I think 2021, 2022, we had really kind of gotten a little bit spoiled, maybe a little bit accustomed to a consistent, commanding Joel Waterman playing on that left, not left, right? He's played everywhere, but playing on that right side of the center back trio. Yeah, exactly. And so, losing that consistency this year, obviously change of coach, there were things and, change of partners in central defense as well. Certainly, I'm sure that didn't help, but nonetheless, a part of me was a little bit worried that maybe there was a degree of not limitation, but just kind of a falling off, kind of. So, he did certainly, just like Elias said, he did certainly get it together, both before and after Rudy Camacho left. I think in right center back, during that really good spell the team had, I think he was back to kind of do the Joel Waterman we had come to expect to see in especially 2022. When he moved in as well, it was a little bit of a rocky transition, but eventually got the hang of the central center back positions. So yeah, there were hot moments, there were cold moments, there were some slow moves. We know he's not the most agile, the most rapid defender out there. I think he's well aware of that as well, and generally tries to play in such a way that doesn't expose him too much. I like his distribution. I think he plays a lovely long pass as well. He's gotten some nifty assists on goals for the club, and I certainly hope he keeps that up. So that's how I feel. And of course, I expect he's 6th round.
Interesting. I agree with both of you. I think it was hot and cold. I think that the system that Hernando Sada was playing wasn't the best system suited for someone like Joel Waterman. He's someone that likes to hold the ball a bit more, and don't forget he's a former midfielder in a certain way, and you didn't have that crisp passing from the back that we saw under Nancy, and that's where he thrives, in my opinion. And that's why that with Losada, I think that his position has to be in the middle of the back three, and we saw him really a lot better at the end of the year. When the team was sinking, that's when we saw a great Joel Waterman. And for me, that's very important for a leader. When your ship is sinking, you need your leaders to really stand up and help the team, at least for them to push the team forward and to give the team a chance. And he did just right that. And for me, that speaks a lot about what kind of player he is. I think you both were a bit too harsh on him. I would give him a 7 out of 10 just because, yes, he had some difficulties at first, but I think all the defense has had a lot of difficulties at first. What he did was the only one, I think, the only player in CF Montreal that kept on improving and getting better until the last game of the season. He's the only player of CF Montreal. And for me, he says a lot from Joel Waterman. So I'll give him a 7, and hopefully, he'll be back. And I think he's going to be the kind of player that I want to see stay here until the end of his career, because I think he deserves to be here. He has his place here, and he's Canadian, and he's everything that we want to see from a player. And he's not afraid to speak up. At one point at the beginning of the season, he said that they weren't expecting to play like that, and he did say a few things that were not really in favor of the coaching style of Hernando Sada at first. So I like what I saw from Joel Waterman, and for me, it's a 7 out of 10. Of course, 6.5. Unfortunately, I don't have a 6.5 graphic, so
you're gonna have to get one.
I'll give him a 7. So but like
we round up, but the ball is round.
Let's do 6, then hide it, then show 7. Okay, that's good. I think we're everybody's happy.
Okay, that's as close to a compromise as we'll get. Yeah.
Good. Perfect. So moving on, next player is George Campbell. I'll start, if you don't mind, guys. I'm going to be super strict, but I'm very disappointed from what I've seen from George Campbell. When he was signed and he was presented as someone that's going to be the new gem of the MLS, of the exchanges in MLS that you can have. I was expecting a lot more, knowing that he's an American international, or called up by the U.S. national team at one point. He played in Atlanta. He played a lot when the team was going very well. He was young. He was he's able to play the back three very easily and everything. And I said, you know what? This guy might be, the next big thing for CF Montreal at the back. Unfortunately, there's something that I hate in center backs, and this is something that I've always hated for the past 20 some years that I watch soccer, is when a center back loses focus and concentration. For me, this is not something that you can learn. You either have it or you don't. And I've never seen a center back that loses concentration get very good at it. I've seen center backs get better, but never good. And for me, this is a big no-no for a center back. And, we can talk, for people that follow European soccer, you have quite a few center backs that are very good, can get you be the man of the game for 2-3 games in a row, and then they just lose it for one game, and then you never know when they're going to lose it, when they're going to just be very bad for one game and cost you a game. And for me, this is unacceptable for a center back. So that's something that I can't get over with, is the loss of concentration. Hopefully he can prove me wrong and get good at that, but I haven't seen this. He said also he was presented as someone that can play as a right center back, as a left center back, and in the middle. I don't at all agree with that. The only few games where he was good was only as a right center back. He was really not good at all when he played in the middle of the back three.
Mm-hmm.
As a left center back, not good at all either. So for me, I need someone that's a bit more versatile. That can be learned, so hopefully he'll get better at that. But very disappointing season, in my opinion, for George Campbell. I give him a 4 out of 10. And I think I'm a bit generous. Elias.
I tend to agree with you. Just the fact that it was very inconsistent, and for all the good he's done, he was exposed a number of games. I think that he's 22, right? And I think that's also important to remember. He is a lot more MLS ready than some academy products or some people coming back from loan would be, or people from if it's a foreign investment. So there is that, and I think he is more in tune with the style of play that MLS brings. But yeah, I mean, there'd be some moments where he would just switch off. I think that his role, once they streamlined his role in right center back, and they kind of just said, "This is your job," and they not spelled it out for him, but they did make his role much more simple. In that, you have to you play with your fullback, and in terms of his defensive responsibilities were streamlined as well. I think that he did thrive a bit more. Yeah, consistency. I think that's the name of the game for him. I think that's the biggest thing he has to work on, because he has all the tools, right? He likes to play he likes to have the ball at his feet. He's tall.
Mm-hmm.
He for someone with his frame, he is quite mobile. He's not rapid, but he is mobile for someone that's like 6'4",
Yeah.
I think. So I think that with all that in mind, the next step really is just the same step for all youngsters, right? It's polishing your game and delivering it more consistently. I think that, the experiment of having him in the middle or him on the left is a big risk. I think that maybe, if Losada feels like he has that confidence in him, he can experiment with him, maybe in some catch-up games or some games where, you want to rotate the squad and you want to try him out, even if it's for a half. But as of right now, have him focus on that right center back position, because as of now, it's his spot to lose. There's nobody else that's going to contest him for that spot. So I think that now you just hammer down on the minutia of the job and just focus on being able to deliver that almost, through muscle memory. And I think I'd give him a 5 this year, just because of, there are good moments or bad moments. So I'll go with the 5.
Eve.
I'm also going to give him a 5. It's his first season in Montreal. He's adjusting to a new team. Since time immemorial, we've seen players have kind of an first season and then go on to have a much improved second season. In passing, yes, I expect he will be with the club next year.
He has 2 years.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I
don't know. It's a question that sometimes comes up. You never know.
No, you're right. No, I should have said it at the beginning. I apologize. So he's under contract in 2024 and 2025.
Okay,
so I
safe bet.
doubt very much that he'll be gone.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you guys already called out the shortcomings that he has. Yeah. I do like his mobility overall, and I do think he's most at home in the right center back position. And as for right now, that's okay because we have other players who can fill in at the other positions. Unfortunately, those players are currently head and shoulders above him. With that being said, I wonder if next season, Joel Waterman's first season in Montreal was not much to write home about. And now look at him, right? No. So let's, I'll be interested how this conversation goes at the end of next season as it relates to George Campbell.
Yeah, I agree. Let's give him time, but I'm more pessimistic than Eve. Wow, that's how bad I am today. So 5 out of 10 for 2 of the ball is round for George Campbell. Of course, we'll give him time to grow 100%. Of course, when we decided on grading players, we only decided to grade players that have played 500 minutes and more and are still with the club as of today. So we will not grade Rudy Camacho and Kamal Miller. There's no other real center backs that have reached that. But let's just give just a few things on the center backs that are still under contract. Just quickly. First of all, we have Fernando Alvarez. It's going to be for a couple of years. We've seen some spells here and there. It's a project. We'll see what it will give. But also Robert Tuckerson is at the end of the contract, still has an option for 2024 and 2025. Ousmane Djabang, that's not under contract either. An option also for 2024, 2025. If you are Olivier Renard, will you pick up the option for one of them, Torkelson, Ousmane Djabang, or would you let them go? And for Fernando Alvarez, are you confident or not confident without giving grade? Of course. Go ahead, Elias. I'll let you start.
I think Ousmane Djabang is far more likely to get picked up than Robert Torkelson. I think Robert Torkelson was a nice idea. I think there was some potential there, but
he's a U22. He's a U22 initiative too. So
that is true. But I think just from a sporting perspective, you say thank you and you move on because it's unfortunately not worked. I think Djabang, just come out of the draft. It's his first year. He wasn't expecting to get many minutes. He got I think he's made 2 or 3 appearances. And look, it is what it is. I think that next year will be a much more substantial year if he can stay fit. And for Fernando Alvarez, except for that one mistake against Houston, he was relatively mistake-free.
Yeah.
I think that I like what I saw from him. And exactly. So I think that, bring it on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for me, by Torkelson, let's wait and see what Alvarez can give. And I'll sign Djabang for 1 option year and see where he goes. I agree with that. Eve, anything else to add on those 3? No. Yeah,
nope, same.
That's why I asked Elias first. So moving on. We do have a few other players, of course, and it's going to be the wing backs. Let's start, first of all, with, I think the most difficult one is Zachary Broguillard. Out of contract as of right now. Yes, the club has 2 option years for 2024 and 2025. He's going to be 25 this January. Let's grade him, knowing that he had an okay season. Eve, I'll let you start. Would you keep him? Grade, and whatever you want to say on him.
Yeah. I mean, his season this season was quite similar to last season. Obviously, another starting right wing back came in and kind of took the position over him. I think the only thing kind of is that Aaron Herrera didn't do it with as much aplomb as Alistair Johnston had done in 2022. So I mean, I think Zach Brault has been with the club for quite some time, so I feel like we know really well what to expect from him. You know, his defensive coverage can be a little bit spotty when he's playing the wing back position. He likes to bomb up forward. I think his decision making has consistently improved year over year in the attacking phase of play when he's asked to contribute to it. So that is something that I will rate as positive in his column. I didn't see any, any thing there. For me, he's been a servant of the club for a long time. And as for whether to keep him, I kind of almost feel like a little bit of a similar situation to James Pantamis. So if he's content to be a backup, he has a long-term contract. He just had a baby here in Montreal. So, he's obviously quite attached to the city. So if he's okay with, playing on a bench role and not being the starter necessarily every game, he did get a really good consistent run with Aaron Herrera's injury this year. And then I am all for keeping him because he is, although he grew up a lot in Quebec, certainly, in France, actually, more so than in Quebec. He is somebody who's been with this club for a very long time, who's kind of been through the ringer. So I'm going to vote keep Zachary Brault if he wants to stay in the spirit of the role that he currently has. For this, I didn't see any huge improvement or any huge, decrease. I'm missing the word. Anything that looked bad compared to last year for Zachary Brault in the performances we got from him. So I'm gonna say if he stayed pretty consistent, I'll give him a 6.5 out of 10 for that.
Oh wow. Okay, that's wow. Okay, wow. Okay, Zachary Brault. I liked his season as a super sub. I know that he wants to do more. Unfortunately, he doesn't have what it takes to be a starter, in my opinion, because every time he starts the game, he's not very consistent. But as a bench player, when he comes in, he can bring that extra pace, that extra, push to get a goal or and create some very interesting things offensively. Just defensively, that sometimes where it's not really good most of the time. I think he needs a change of scenery. I think also Montreal needs a change of scenery so that we don't have always the same discussion of is Zachary Brault better than he is, and should he be the starter? Where there's another one, I think it has to be clearer. And I think he's paid a bit too much to be a backup right wing back, in my opinion. So I think he's over 200. I think it's about 250 or 300,000. Yeah, 300,000, which is a bit too much. Knowing the structure of the salaries that the CF Montreal has. So no, for me, I wouldn't really extend his contract. But you know what? I don't think Zachary Brault wants to stay either. I think you guys were, Eve, you were a bit too generous. I would give him a 5 out of 10 because he did play quite a few games this year. And unfortunately, for someone that plays that high up as a right wing back, I would have liked to see a bit more stats because we saw him most of the time play not even as a right wing back, but as a winger, like really, really high up. And he only has he played in 24 games. Yes, of course, not a starter in all of them, but still 24 games. And he has just all competitions, 2 goals, 1 assist. And for me, a right wing back that plays that high up should have at least a few more assists, 2, 3, 4 more assists in the game.
You forget the strikers that he was serving.
Still,
which is a
other
conversation
players.
for a few weeks from now.
Yeah, exactly. But other players have able to give more assists than him playing that position. So, that's something that I'm looking at myself. Elias, are you more an Eve on Eve's team or Hady's team? Because it's the first time that
I
we
am,
disagree on the player.
yeah, I am smack dab in the middle. I gave Zachary Bogart a 6 this year. Just because I do disagree with Eve a bit in that I did see some significant steps forward. You also have to remember he played double the minutes this year that he played compared to what he played under Nelsie. One, because Aaron Herrera got hurt for a long time this year, and also secondly, you're going up against Alistair Johnston. You're going to come up second every single time. It's just, a byproduct of being in competition with arguably the best right back in the league at that point. Last year, one of, and I think this year he was exactly what was needed at certain moments, and I think that he would have looked even better if Aaron Herrera stayed healthy and he would have kind of embraced his role as like this spark plug, because I feel like every time he came off the bench, it was the shot in the arm that the attack needed, and I think that he embodies the other side. Like we always talk about Metzer Chonier and the Grinta and this effort. He embodies the other side of it, where he has this aggression and this energy that wakes everybody up, and that's what you want from a super sub, especially a fullback, especially one of those flank players, because he doesn't necessarily have the legs to play a full 90 minutes, but those 30 minutes he will run for 30 minutes, right? And I think that he kind of does embrace this dog mentality where he is like, I'm going for a scrap, whether it is a physical scrap or if it's like a territorial one with another fullback. I think that he loves those challenges, and I think that he is a bit expensive. But if I'm Montreal and he is okay with, again, for the time being, playing second fiddle to Aaron Herrera, I keep him on board, because he has been I think he's taken massive steps forward, even if his production's gone down compared to last year. I think he's taken massive steps forward in terms of the way he goes about his game. So I look forward to seeing that continued evolution, especially in a style of play that's as vertical as Losada's. I think that this is a style made for him, and I hope that they keep him on board.
We'll see. So 6 out of 10 for Zachary Boguillard. Moving on, next player, Lassi Lapalainen. As a left wing back, Lassi Lapalainen played a few games this year. Of course, a lot of injuries again. He is under contract for next year, for 2024, by the way, guys. Eve, let's start with Lassi Lapalainen.
Yeah, I think he's going to be around, but I don't think it's like a good thing. I mean, he's had an operation, for a sports hernia, so he's not going to be ready to start the season next year. And unfortunately, he is a bit of an injury-prone player.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I will say for Lassi is that Hernan Lozada seemed to just super simplify it this year, because we have been back and forth about Lassi as a left winger, Lassi as a left wing back, blah, blah, blah. And Lozada just seemed to say, you know what, screw it. Let's just put him on the right, since he's not left-footed. And let's face it, he looked significantly more comfortable on that side than he did on the left side this year. Like, yeah, he did look really good on that side last year, but everybody looked good last year. So, and I mean, credit to him for making it work last year, however he did. But again, this year, it was back to that really, really awkward left winger, left wing back style of play that we've become accustomed to with Lassi. Unfortunately for him, though, Montreal has a bevy of right-sided players available to them who are not TAM players, also taking up an international spot. So, for me, for Lassi this year, I mean, for the amount of money that the club pays him, he should be a difference maker,
Yeah, I agree.
Especially for, the lowest salary in the league. If you're making TAM, like, it's basically a miracle. So I'm going to give him a 4. We didn't see very much. And when we did see it, he looked good. but it was on the wrong side of the pitch for where we actually need the players. So I'm going to give him a 4.
And do you keep him or you don't?
I said at the start, I think he is around next season,
Okay.
but I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah, but do you keep him? Independently of his contract,
If it's my choice, no.
Yeah, no. Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, good. Just wanted to be clear. That's very interesting, and that's the reason. Lastly, is the reason why I would not keep Zachary Boguillard. And Eve answered a part of that question, saying that Losada can't. Decided to play him as a right wing back, and I think that's where he could be very interesting as a backup to the other right wing back. But also, what's interesting is to know what
you just said. Zachary Boguillard makes too much money to be a backup. You want your TAM player to be a backup.
I'm continuing the thing. What's interesting is that he can play as a right wing back, he can play as a left wing back, and he can play as a forward because Losada did play him as a forward at one point also. True. So I think that's very interesting to have a backup because he is under contract either way next year. It's not because I don't think nobody's going to come and pay money for him. No. So I would keep him either way because he's going to be with us. I would keep him as the backup, knowing that he can be versatile and play in other positions. Now, I didn't like his season at all. 4 out of 10 is also the grade that I would give him, and I think I'm generous too. But I don't think if we can maybe, since we're stuck with him next year, if we can sell him, that would be better. But if we can't sell him, I would re-sign Zachary Boguillard. If we can't sell him, then I would not sign Zachary Boguillard. For me, their future is linked between the two of them. So 4 out of 10. I want to see more of Lassie. I want to see him progress. Yeah, but he's not evolving at all, and that's he's not.
Okay. Well, you're signing up for another season, so
I don't have a choice.
You said I would keep him.
Yeah, because he has a contract, right?
No, but you asked me earlier, Hady. You said irrespective of the contractual situation.
Yeah, I would. I would let him go.
You said you would keep him.
No, I would let him go. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I would let him go.
I completely misunderstood you. Sorry.
No, maybe I didn't. I wasn't clear myself. I would let him go, but if I have a choice between Lassi Lapalainen, who I can't sell,
with the versatility,
and signing an extension for Zachary Boguillard, I would choose Lassi Lapalainen and just not extend Zachary Boguillard because for me, there's no reason why I would have the two of them together in the squad. So that's my opinion.
Okay,
sorry, I didn't make sense at one point. Elias, what do you think about Lassi Lapalainen?
I agree with the 4, but I disagree with both of you, and it hinges mainly on what Hernan Losada does with his formation next year. If we have wingers, if we see wingers, he's
not going to be here.
His
okay, sorry. the coach.
If we see wingers in Hernan Losada's formation,
or whoever's
like we saw at the end, or whomever's formation.
Thank you, Elias.
Next year, I think he could be, and again, this is operating under the assumption that, look, we're keeping him next year because I don't think they can get rid of that contract, even if they do trade him, and he's got another year. So while he's here, may as well make good use of him. He was arguably the best offensive super sub that they had off the bench in terms of impact. When it came to breaking down low blocks, he usually was the one that was his burst of pace was the one that was breaking low blocks. I think if you have him as a winger, because it's very clear that defensively, not only does he not have the stamina of Ariel Lassiter, I think that Ariel Lassiter is actually a better defender than Lassi Lapalainen is. But if you have him as an out-and-out winger, you see that effect that he has. He's good with the dribble. He's quick and, without the burden of that defensive responsibility, if you have him for half an hour a game, he could be very impactful. So I think that, having him next year is not completely it doesn't cancel out Zachary Brault. I think the two of them can kind of coexist, but ultimately, I think 4-10 is fair, and I think keeping him as a super sub, there could be worse things in the world.
Okay, moving on. We still have just a couple more players before we wrap it up. With, of course, the last subject that we have, Mathieu Choinière. We put him there because he did play everywhere, and I think we wanted to give, a good grade to someone on this postmortem. I think I wanted to give a good grade. What a player. Honestly, what a player. I'm not going to, say too much on him. Just versatile. He exceeded the expectations of everybody. I think everybody, coach included, all the fans included, everybody, I think, nobody was expecting a season like the one that Mathieu Choinière had. I think an 8 out of 10 is the right grade that I will give him, because it's very hard for me to give more than that. 8 out of 10. Of course, he's here. I think he should sign a contract extension as soon as possible to show our appreciation of that player, that says that he's willing to stay here. He's very happy here. I see him finish his career at the club. He's under contract for 2024 with an option in 2025, but I'm pretty sure he's going to sign an extension pretty soon. He's only 24. He's going to be 25 in February. Please stay and stay and let us love you a bit more, Mathieu Choinière. Amazing player, amazing personality. So impressed. Elias.
I'm giving him a 9, just because of the fact that, I gave Jonathan Servois an 8. And I feel like Mathieu Choinière this year was borderline faultless. And so I gotta take one step up from that. You said it all. I mean, he stepped onto the first time, from the first game that he played, he was like shot out of a cannon. And everyone was kind of waiting for his momentum to die down, and it just didn't. So I can't wait to see what he adds to his arsenal next year. And I can't wait to see the growing he's going to do, because it seems like he's got his head in the right place, and he's got his priorities set out, and he seems to be very not content with like resting on his laurels with the good season he's had. So it looks like he wants to keep on improving, which is exactly what you want to see from your best player. So yeah, that's a 9, and I can't wait to see the Mathieu Choinière we get next season.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Were you done?
Oh yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Yeah.
I was about to say Eve, but you talked, so that's good.
Yeah, no, Mathieu Choinière has been one of he's been one of the great joys of Montreal these last couple of years. I feel like we say it almost week in and week out, and sometimes, he's the only positive point to talk about when we're talking about a Montreal match. I'm really, really glad that he's been recognized. He won Player of the Year at the club level. He won the Jason Titulio Trophy. He finally got called up and got some minutes with the national team, even though it wasn't, in the greatest match of national team history. So I'm really glad to see it. And I agree that I think some kind of extension does need to be offered. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't done and dusted quite a while ago. I understand, he did get a he does have his contract well underway, but I think it is important to acknowledge, like you said, Hady, his importance to the club and the city. And I think we did get to see the captain's armband on him a couple of times this season. And for me, it fits. He is somebody. No, for me, he's somebody who should be around this club till the end of his days, if that's what he wants. So yeah, nothing but good things to say. He was one of the few players on whom we could rely consistently this season.
Yeah. So
yeah, 8.
Said 8. Yeah.
8.
Okay, good. So we all agree on 8. I know Elias said 9, but it's going to be an 8 for Mathieu Choinière. But like 2 out of 3 said 8. So, it's an 8.
No, I agree with the overall rating.
Yeah.
Good. So moving on, we still have one player to go, and I
Oh my
think
God, he's not
it's
played in so long. I can't even remember what to say.
Aaron Herrera. Honestly, I'm gonna start this time. Honestly, I think that's his injuries really hurt CF Montreal. I think
Hmm.
this player can be dominant in this league. He's able to give some great crosses, and we saw it at the beginning of the season. How many times has the team really given him the ball for him to cross the ball? That was very, very interesting. His offensive flair is really nice. Defensively, he's very sound. There's no problem there. I think he's a very good player. I think that unfortunately, because he was injured for so long, so he didn't see the good part of the season in a certain way. And even when he was here, um, you feel I felt that he was diminished in a certain way. But I love the player. I think that he's the right fit for Montreal. I think that he can be very, very good for this club, and I can't wait to see him. It's not someone that's injury prone usually, so I hope that we're going to be able to see him play a whole year next year. I would give him a 5 out of 10 because unfortunately I can't give him more because he didn't play enough games, in my opinion. His injuries are taking a toll on his overall grade, in my opinion. And of course, I would keep him with the club. He's still under contract with the club for 2024 with an option for 2025. Eve.
Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. The injuries were not definitely not helpful to either the club or to the player himself. I think his adaptation to Montreal, and I mean, obviously he came in, there was an injury crisis to start with, new coach. He was in a brand new environment. He had been, at Real Salt Lake for quite a long time beforehand. So I think probably, especially just given the reaction to the trade and kind of everything that we were told, we were kind of expecting fireworks out the gate with him, and that wasn't necessarily what Montreal got during his first several matches with the club. But once they kind of got over that hump, whatever you want to call the disastrous start to the season, we did start to see a lot of that attacking flair that he could offer that made us maybe cry a little less over the departure of Alistair Johnston to greener pastures. As well, he does still retain a really good defensive awareness, and I think he has a sufficient pace and energy to keep bombing up and down that right side of the corridor if it is indeed a wing back role that he's going to be expected to play next season. But yeah, being consistently healthy is so important. I really liked his crossing of the ball. I thought he delivered some great crosses. Unfortunately, Montreal struggled with conversion all season. So to give him a grade, like, it's been a long time since he's last played a match. So for me, it's kind of hard to give him a grade. So I'm going to kind of pull this one a little bit out of thin air. I'll give him a 7 out of 10.
Oh wow! Okay.
I'm not sure though. I'm really not married to that number at all.
Okay.
I'm
impressed.
No, it's just he's not played since. Oh my gosh!
That's why I give him 5 because he hasn't played enough.
Yeah, since August. Okay, well, you know what? Then I'm gonna give him a 6. I changed my mind. Sorry, I'm gonna give him a 6. Yeah, I'm just not 100%. Like, I'm not committed to any number.
Okay, Elias.
Yeah, I was going to give him a 7 based on performances, but I settle on a 6 because of availability, right? Just I don't remember what it's like seeing him play, which is just kind of depressing because he's been absent for so long. But yeah, I mean, I think that he does have that similar profile to Alistair Johnston. I don't think he's as good defensively, but I do think he's actually better. He could be better going forward. So we'll see what his usage is like next season. Hopefully, a full season. But I think, again, it's another player with tremendous upside that can play a variety of roles. And it's honestly just, your best ability is availability, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just getting there, staying healthy, and being able to put out, he played fewer minutes than Broguiard by the end of the season, right? He played
Yeah.
100 fewer
Yeah.
minutes. So that if that doesn't tell you anything, then there you go. So that's it, man. Just keep growing from there, but just stay healthy. That's it.
Stay
So
healthy.
6 on 10
Yeah.
for me. Exactly.
Interesting. So, so we're gonna settle for a 6 out of 10 because two of you decided to put a 6. So that's it for the review of the players. We got to move on to our last subject. It's not going to be a very long subject, but it's important for us to talk about it, even if it's been a while now. So many things happened. It's the game of the Canadian women's national team against Brazil, the second game of the doubleheader. For Canada that played against Brazil in Halifax, sold out stadium again in Halifax. Lineup for Bev Friesman with D'Angelo playing as a goalkeeper. First time that she is between the posts for a long time. As central defenders, we had Kadisha Buchanan, Shelina Zadorsky, and Vanessa Gilles. As midfielders, we had Quinn, along Regan, and who was the third one? It was Fleming. No, not Fleming. Who was in the middle?
They played with 2 midfielders, no?
Yeah.
Two
Is that
midfielders.
3-4-3?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. 2 midfielders. As a right wing back, we had Lawrence. As a left wing back, we did have Riviere. Up front, we had on the right Leon, on the left Haitama, and up front Evelyn. Yeah, sorry, I'm just So looking at the substitutions between the first game and the rotation between the first game and the second, Elias, we talked about it last week, and I said that it would have been nice to see some Quebecers play in Montreal, and you and Alexander were really told me that no, that you weren't really surprised that we're building for Paris 2024, and we have to see the starting 11. But now we see a rotation. So what do you think about that? Knowing that Beth Friesen really wanted to establish her starting 11, but then in Halifax we see a Quebecer start, which I think would have been better in Montreal. And we see something different. Do you think that it's related to the result that the team had in Montreal?
I think we have more of an emotional attachment to Quebecers playing Quebec than Bev Priestman does. I think that's the crux of it. I think that Chloe Lacasse and Evelyn Vier are both in such phenomenal form that Bev Priestman was probably like, you get one start, and then we'll kind of we'll aggregate. It would have been nice to have those starts inverted. It may also be a
throw me a bone
thing,
here.
Right? There's a million and one different reasons why. Yeah, Evelyn Vier starting, in front of her home crowd would have been ideal.
Eve, but whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But ultimately, I was happy to see, because again, that was probably the game of Montreal is probably your strongest, or what Bev Priestman would field in a competitive match. But there's some other players that do have a very decent shout at claiming a starting spot.
Yeah.
So I think that having them also get a start and having them control the ebbs and flows, not just as a sub, but how can you handle a starting role is very good to know. So I wasn't too surprised at some of the changes, and I was happy to see that a lot of people continue to get a look, and that we saw Ashley Lawrence on the right hand side 2 games in a row, was just great.
Interesting. Talking about the changes, Eve, what did you think about? I'm going to ask you just a couple questions together. First of all, what did you think about the 3 forwards, like Leon, Vian, Haidama, the combinations between the 3, the choice of profiles between the 3, but also at the same time that pair up in the middle between the Regan and Quinn. What did you think about all that? Because I think there's a lot of interesting things that we can get out of this game. So go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think it was really interesting to see Jordan Huydema deployed as a winger, because that's typically not the role that we're used to seeing her play in the national team setup. Definitely, she is a very mobile player, and Evelyn Vienne needs to be the central striker. Like, for me, there is no other role for her. She does not have that versatility in her arsenal, and perhaps that is something that does go against her, is that she is a striker's striker, whereas Adriana Leon can play as well as a central striker if asked, although she is very reliable on the wing for sure. I thought it was creative. We haven't seen a lot of creativity from Bev Priestman in quite a while. And I was really disappointed really with how cookie cutter I felt the lineup that we saw in Montreal was. And I was really concerned that we were going to see the same thing in Halifax. So I was really pleased to see a degree of rotation and some innovation as well for Bev Priestman. I think she's clearly trying to move forward with a new formation. And I know she's talked a little bit about how she's wanted to change things up tactically, especially in the post-Christine Sinclair era, which is coming quickly upon us. But that being said, so for me, attacking-wise, I thought it was creative. I mean, it took a long time for Canada to get going attackingly. It really wasn't until the second half that they produced many chances of note against Brazil. But that being said, it was one of the more interesting changes I've seen from Bev Priestman in a little while. As for the midfield, Emma Regan, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember when she played for Canada in 2018, so I really don't have a basis for comparison. That being said, I thought, comparatively, I thought Quinn had a really disastrous game in Montreal, unfortunately, and normally I am like their number one fan. But I thought that the setup was a lot more stable this time around against Brazil. I don't know exactly how much rotation Brazil had done. I didn't pay a ton of attention. I just knew Marta was out there, so Elias was living his best life. And I did think there was a lot more simplicity and a lot more stability in the midfield compared to in Montreal. And maybe the loss of Jessie Fleming might have contributed to the shambolic midfield in Montreal. But overall, Emma Regan, for me, our sample size is really, really small. But I think I would be interested to see some more of what she could bring as a depth and rotation option for Canada. Because I do feel like we've kind of tested the limits of the Quinn, Grosso, Fleming triad to its limits.
Interesting. Honestly, I liked what I saw from Regan. Yes, small sample size, but I really like what I saw. I would be very interested to see a Regan Fleming duo in the midfield. At one point, I think that the loss of Jessie Fleming in the midfield really hurt us a lot, and that's why the first half was dismal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Really, really bad, and really tough to watch. But I think when Jessie Fleming came in, we saw that spark in the midfield that really started to show. And obviously, because Jessie Fleming was here, Bev Priestman substituted Evelyn Vian. We saw Diane Rose come in. We saw Chloe Lacasse come in for Adriana Leon. And honestly, it made sense. Those changes made sense. We needed something different with Diane Rose. I think I prefer Diane Rose to Adriana Leon, personally. They are the same profile of player.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah, I prefer Diane Rose. But I prefer Vian to Huydema, but that's my personal opinion. Yeah. So we saw some interesting things from Bev Priestman, and we haven't seen that in the first game in Montreal. I just don't like the link-ups that she makes. I think we could have a better team, a better starting 11 with better choices from the get-go, in my opinion. Go ahead, Eve.
I think my one concern is that whatever setup Bev Priestman deploys is so dependent on Jessie Fleming to make things work. And I think she needs to have a plan B.
Yeah, but not only that, I think we need to give a bit more responsibilities to Ashley Lawrence as a right wing back.
That's a good point.
and we saw that in Montreal, Elias, and we talked about it last week. On the left side, I can't wait to have a Gabrielle Carl, because even if she played only a few minutes here and there in the two games, in the only game in Halifax, no, Montreal, she didn't play. Gabrielle Carl didn't play.
Oh my God! Oh God! I forgot what city I'm talking.
I really liked what she showed in the last 10 minutes of the game where she came in Halifax, and I think she's going to be a lot more impactful than Jade Riviere or whoever she chose. Collins on the left. I think you need to see an Ashley Lawrence on the right and a Gabrielle Card on the left, and I think that would be very interesting offensively too. So Elias, talk to me about that goal from Jordan Heidema. She hadn't scored in a while. A cross of Ashley Lawrence, obviously. Talk to me about that goal. How important is it for Canada, but also for Jordan Heidema?
Oh, we talked about it last week. We were begging, we were pleading, right? Like, please play Jordan Heidema at her natural position. And obviously, Evelyn Bien is much more of a proper 9 than Jordan Heidema is, who can play on the wing. But, with Tian Rose coming in, Jordan Heidema playing up at number 9, unlike, in Montreal when we saw Ashley Leon shift over to the middle and Jordan Heidema move over to the right, which was kind of just nobody understood why. So just, you put a poacher in the right spot and you put someone with great crossing ability aiming right at her, good things happen, right? And Jordan Heidema is just, she has this eye for goal and showed it again. And the second that, she scored that, I was like, well, yeah, she's playing in her preferred position. It's a poacher's goal. And it was great. Everything we had asked for after the Montreal game we saw in the second half. So it was, just all in all, just finally, so it's a display that you can kind of come away smiling from.
Yeah, very interesting. So interesting also, that second goal with the flick header from Chloe Lacasse.
I love that goal.
Deanne Rose. Yeah, really nice.
I just want to say,
the first goal in a while. So that's really interesting also for Deanne
especially
Rose.
Given her injury journey that she was on. I think
injury and also her contractual situation with Reading and the whole problem behind it, and the fact that she signed with Leicester after, which
exactly. No, she's definitely been through the ringer. I would say in the last year or so. So really, 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 really happy for her. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. Moving on, we do have a few questions, 6 questions, and we're so happy to answer your questions, guys. Really keep on sending them. It's always very interesting to interact with you. So let's go ahead and answer those questions. We'll start with Amin. Amin Sabri, now that all the MLS teams ask for big GAM amounts for trades, and also the international signing not working well, do you think Renard would change his strategy this year? Maybe with free agency, re-entry draft, and higher and better super draft picks now that Justin Mapp is here. So do you think that Olivier Renard will change his strategy, Eve?
I think he should. I think he should, especially I know, by sign young players, develop them, blah, blah, blah. But you do need veteran presence. And so if you are going to be investing the majority of your player acquisition funds into those young project type players or back into your academy, however it may be, then you need to look for alternative channels to find veteran players. And MLS has a curious way of working that doesn't necessarily mean signing a free agent from abroad is going to lead to quick success, because it's so slow to adapt to a league here. So some of those alternative channels, like Amin mentioned, like the re-entry draft and the litany of other drafts that MLS puts on, I think are worth looking at.
Elias, Olivier Renard said that we need to strengthen the forward line. Do you think that it comes with an international signing, a veteran presence, like Yves said, or do you think it can be within the MLS through the re-entry draft, through a super draft, or through another intra-MLS exchange or a trade, what do you think about that? What do you think the strategy is the best strategy for Olivier Renard?
It depends on what they're looking for, right? They're looking for a proper forward, and that's much more easier said than done, especially within MLS. When you look at inter-MLS trades that, if you exclude DPs, forwards are very hit or miss and are rarely consistent, right? So you really are kind of going off a whim here. Now, when it comes to international signings and stuff like that, we've seen a lot of teams find their striker and just run with it. You look at Yorgos Yakumakis, who just won Newcomer of the Year. You look at Cucho. You look at a litany of players that come in and embrace a very straightforward role, at least to start, right? Cucho now has fleshed out his game, but he started off as just a proper 9, and then he became this monster that we see now. Yakumakis is a proper 9. So if they're looking for something straightforward like that, you can go looking. But again, you can also end up with a Chinonzo 4 where, it's a bit rough around the edges. So I think that their MLS business has been so much better than their international business that I think that it's more reliable. So at this point, they're just looking for reliable. So you have to go into MLS, I think.
Interesting. Very interesting. There are a few options, of course, on the free agent market, and let the people that really want to go look at the international market as free agents. There are some interesting players that Olivier Renard can take a look at. Now, is he going to be able to pay for them? That's a completely different ball game. He does have quite a few key decisions to take this offseason. Not only the coach, but we talked about all the players, the options and everything. I think it's going to be a very, very important, transfer window for Olivier Renard. Very, very important. Moving on. So hopefully we answered your question. I mean, I think that Justin Mapp has a role to play with the Super Draft, maybe to go get, those players that not a lot of teams take a look at, because not a lot of teams have some insiders that can give them some tips on the Super Draft. So hopefully he can find us a gem or two within the Super Draft, and that could be very interesting too. Moving on with the second question is from Normand Ouellet. Will Wanyama be back, or will the Impact try to move him, use his salary and Kyoto's for quality number 10 and 9? Elias, what do you think?
Said it earlier this year. I think this is Kyoto's last season in Montreal, and we've already been very clear about Wanyama's standing. I think they're both gone, and that does free up almost $3 million. So I think that you've got to make good use of it. That's a lot of money for a talisman striker, and go for it.
Wow, Eve.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think there's too much bad blood for Wanyama, unfortunately, with how things went with Lozada. And for Kyoto, the injury history, it was very tumultuous this season. And publicly, he's training with another team. So, yeah. As to how they spend any money that would be spent on their salaries, I wouldn't begin to dream to guess.
I'm pretty sure Wanyama will be back. Losada will not be here, but Kyoto will be gone. If I was Olivier Renard, I would re-sign Wanyama for a couple more seasons, but with a very lower salary. Not as a DP, maybe as a TAM player, if he agrees. If not, and another club wants him, so yeah, let him go for a small fee or even for free if he wants to, and then lose his salary. So it all depends on what Wanyama wants to do. If he accepts a lower salary, then I would, sign him, give him an extension, and of course put more money on the offense. I wouldn't go for a striker. I would go for a creative 10, but that's my opinion. I think we need someone that can be the maestro in the midfield, but that's my personal opinion. Moving on, next question. What do you think about the choice of coach for the U.S. national team? So, Eve, that's for you. So we have Emma Hayes that signed for
yes. So jealous.
for the U.S. national team.
I don't think it's official yet.
Yeah, but
just to be
kind
clear.
of.
Yeah, it's like one of
So
those. Yeah, no,
exactly. So
it's not official.
just to present them, Hayes, if you don't mind, ex Chelsea coach that won the league 4 times, the FA Cup a couple of times, and has been with Chelsea for a few years now. So very experienced coach, but also someone that has a few titles under the belt. Is it the kind of resume that you want to see with a national team? Someone that has expected the expectations, um, you know, like have very high expectations,
Yeah.
Towards a national team program.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for the US women's national team, they are used to being the top of the table in women's football. So I think absolutely you need a very competitive coach. Things definitely did not go to plan under their previous manager, and Emma Hayes has coached elite players. She's coached strong personalities, of which there are no shortage on the US women's national team. She has won a bevy of trophies, and I think that pedigree is going to do her a world of good with the U.S. women's national team. The soccer her team plays is really nice to watch. Chelsea is a really great, really easy on the eyes, very attacking, very dominant on the field, almost stifling their opponents, most weeks. So for me, yeah, it's honestly like a match made in heaven, or hell for the rest of us, I guess, if you're not a fan of the U.S. women's national team.
What does it mean,
Yeah,
Elias?
I think she's going to have very high standards, and that's going to line up right with, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you got cut off,
Did we lose
Eve. So
Hady?
sorry. Yeah, I don't know
Elias, are
why
you with me?
we lost you. So
Okay.
hello, are you here?
Oh, I'm back.
Okay, you're back. Okay, good. Sorry, I
What are
think
you
I
saying?
interrupted you. Yeah, no, I can hear you. We can hear you, Eve. We can hear you. You can't hear us. Okay. Um, she can't hear us. It seems. Can you hear us, Eve? You
I
can
can hear
answer.
you.
Okay, so go ahead. You got cut off at one point. We couldn't
I
hear
have
you
no
anymore.
idea what happened. I couldn't hear you
Okay, it's
either.
okay.
But
Okay,
now
so
we
yeah,
hear
so
each
you
other. Okay.
yeah, good, perfect. Okay, so just moving on, and Elias, uh, what do you think this move is going to be for the Canadian players of Chelsea? Because we do have Lawrence, we do have Buchanan, and we do have Fleming. All three players. Are we going to be able to see them, all the three of them, on the pitch together? That could be very interesting too. So can't wait to see what's going to happen with the Chelsea players.
Yeah, I mean they form a nice little triangle there. Center back, right back, and central midfielder. So I think I think that they're all very versatile players and they're all very adaptable, and I think that they can thrive under any manager. I think someone like Matt Hayes has brought out the best in a team like Chelsea that's already full of talent and full of stars. So I think for the women's national team, this is a huge get. But yeah, I think it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens with Chelsea because they still have so much talent, and that manager has massive shoes to fill. So the interesting times in the WSL.
Let's wait and see what Hayes is going to do with the U.S. Women's national team and also what's going to happen with Chelsea. Moving on from Majid, while you're at it, can you explain to people why $1 of GAM doesn't equal $1? I wish everyone would understand it because I don't think I can go through listening to one more person using the argument that we spent millions and millions in transfer this year. I agree and I don't agree at the same time. Yes, of course, $1 of GAM is not equal to $1. Completely agree with you. $1 of GAM is given by the league, and $1 is not given by the league. It's straight from the owner. Completely, I agree with that. The only difference is that this is the amount that you have, whether it's GAM or not. You can spend it or you can not spend it. In this window, CF Montreal decided to spend all their GAM money. They maxed the budget of GAM money with the money coming from transfers, which is really interesting. Yes, of course, they could have used a lot more than that, but they didn't. It's still money that they used, even if it's league money. It's still money that they used, and they could have not used it because a GAM money you can use it for 2 years. So even the 2023 amount, you could have used it in 2024, and they didn't use that. So that's why for me, yes, it's not money, but also it is money you can spend or not. Anybody else has anything to add on this? No, good. Thank you. Moving on, Dr. Foot. It's in French, so he's asking, are we going to see Olivier Renard respond to the interest of Mauro Biello for being the coach, the head coach of CF Montreal? If you're very passionate about this, so go ahead.
Firm no. Okay, number one, you are the most anti-return person here.
But I didn't do like this on the show.
I couldn't even get through the question. I'm sorry. No, Mauro Biello, like, don't get me wrong, he's a legend of the Montreal Impact, obviously. He's super respected. Now he's kind of navigating the interim national team manager role. But, like, I don't think, tactically speaking, he would be an improvement on Hernan Lozada. So for me, that's just a flat out no. We got spoiled under Wilfred Nancy. We need a tactician now. We've seen what it means to have one finally.
Elias, anything to add?
You've said it all.
Yeah, same exactly for me. There's a coach that's available. His name is Giorgio Sampaoli. And I'll be very, 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 very happy if that happens, even if he's going to be very expensive. So, yes, he's available, my friend Elias.
I'd love to see him try to coach
why my eyes are open. That's not why my eyes are open.
Yeah, I know it's really out of the very random choice. But I was thinking about someone that can play positive soccer, and there's not a lot of coaches that really play positive soccer, very offensive soccer. A bit like what Nancy, proposed. Now, Sampaoli has very high expectations on the money spent on the squad, so I don't think this will ever happen. Last question, but not least, I think we all answered, Dr. Foot's question, so no for Biello. Good. Next, Rhonda Brownlee says, opinions on Phil Neville possibly becoming the new head coach for the Timbers and the reaction of their supporters club. I'm pretty sure you're asking me what was the reaction of the supporter club. So the reaction, there it is, from the Timbers Army. The Portland Timbers are currently rebuilding a team on the pitch, in addition to their ongoing efforts to rebuild trust with their fans and the community. We are deeply disappointed that the club has reportedly settled on a finalist for head coach who has a history of sexist public statements that run counter to our ethos as a club, city, and supporters group, and who also lacks a proven track record as a manager. We urge the Timbers to reconsider this hire and reevaluate other candidates before finalizing a contract. Timbers Army Steering Committee and whatever boards of director. Wow, Elias. It seems like a very, very bad choice for the Timbers in case they do go ahead with Phil Neville, no?
I mean, my feelings about Phil Neville notwithstanding, I'm very impressed and very proud that a supporters group puts out a statement like that. I think that not standing for this at your club is a very important part of what makes supporters groups so special in the footballing world in general. That we don't really see that at many other sports. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be an interesting saga to follow. And remember, the grass is not always greener at other clubs. So that's another thing to consider.
If anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, Portland has had its fair share of scandal, I guess is probably the appropriate word for it, in the past couple of years. And, their relationship with their supporters group is not in a great, groups, plural, sorry, are not in a great place right now. So I think the supporters groups are in the driver's seat when it comes to putting pressure on this, because Portland is like one of the flagship clubs when it comes to that atmosphere that's so iconic in MLS. So good for them, honestly, for recognizing what they will not accept and what represents the values of their club. You know, I like it. I'm all for it. Power to them.
I'll go even further than that. For me, it's unacceptable that a club doesn't take this in the equation when they take a decision. It's unacceptable in 2023, almost 2024, that this happens. When someone has a history of a bad history with his ethics, this is unacceptable in 2023. Getting a public job is not the right thing right now. So because everything is known now, you can't hide anymore. And you know what? The Timbers should know better. So hopefully we'll see that in the next. We'll see the Timbers take that into consideration. Last but not least, we do have a message from Rhonda Brownlee, and I'll leave Elias to talk about it.
Yes, this is from Rhonda. This is in response to a tweet from the Canada Soccer official Twitter account saying that of the 5 friendlies planned on Canadian soil right now, there's one left that hasn't been sold out, and that is Vancouver at BC Place. And basically Rhonda sent us a message saying, talking about just can we count you in on promoting this, and if I had to ask both of you to 30-second pitch on why you should go to this game. Eve, if I had to ask you first,
I was born for this.
30-second pitch on why you should go to this game and why you should get a ticket to see this game. Go.
I don't need 30 seconds. I just need one word, and I need the GOAT. That is the only word you need. This is your very last opportunity to see one of the most iconic athletes in Canadian history take to the pitch. This is somebody who played under so many challenging conditions during this time, who's helped pave the way for future generations to have an easier time in soccer. This is your best opportunity to say thank you for trophies, say thank you for medals, say thank you for all the success and all the emotions on and off the pitch to Christine Sinclair, and finally to help usher in whoever is going to take up the mantle in her place. So absolutely, it's going to be the place to be on December 5th, BC Place, Vancouver. Get there.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of things to Eve's comments. Christine Sinclair, for sure, you have to be here for her. The best goal scorer in football history. As simple as that, for international football history. It's as simple as that. You can't get better than that. It just doesn't happen. So that's one. Second of all, and you guys have been saying for a lot of time that anytime the women's or the men's national team go and play a home game in Canada, it's either in Toronto or they just don't play. You have a chance of seeing a national team elsewhere than in Toronto. Go show up and show your support so that it happens again. We did it here in Montreal. 19,681 people showed up with a press box full of journalists. They did it in Halifax. They're going to do it in Victoria. They did it in Toronto. Why can't we do it in British Columbia? It should be as simple as that. It should be, not in British Columbia, sorry, in Vancouver, because in Victoria it's going to be full. It should be easy. It should be normal. So go ahead, go buy a ticket. They're not expensive. Support your national team. Support the greatest athlete of all time. As simple as that, Christine Sinclair. I think that's enough.
I think that's a good way to end our show.
So that's it. That's all. So thanks a lot for everybody for listening to us, guys. I know it's been a long show, but we're doing as much as we can to cover everything, but still keep it as short as possible. Not this time. But we'll do better the next time. Thanks a lot. See you next week for another episode of the Bonus Round.